I love it so much. I can't seem to stop. That's really why I keep doing it. I have no idea. It's costing me a fortune of money. It's just now, this new venture that I started I'm starting to bring in money.
What up, schmoozers? Welcome back to Schmoozing Time. Or for all my new listeners, my name is David Covey, and I'm thrilled to bring you weekly episodes featuring proud Jews discussing their personal brands. Shout out to all my listeners who have helped me continue to grow the show. Feel free to DM me and let me know which of your episodes has been your favorites. Speaking of favorites, I think this one will be a favorite to those of you who enjoy people with a big personality. In this week's episode, you'll be hearing from someone who is well established in the legal community. Yes, those quote-unquote boring lawyers you hear about are not actually all that boring. Here with me today is a man who's the owner of a law firm, podcast host, and the man who is single-handedly taking charge in getting every single Toyota Mirai off our roads. Please welcome to the show, Jason Ingber. Jason, how are we doing today, man?
Wow, David, it's like you have a whole team that gives you these loaded intros because you really made my mother and me proud, or whoever that knows me is listening. But you should be so proud. I love how many times you said the word schmoozing in your intro too. It reminds me of when I was in Vienna. I did a semester abroad there, and I was trying to get into a club that I didn't have any business trying to get into. And I was like talking to the security guard, and I was like, oh, I was just schmoozing with the other security guard. And the guy's like laughing because schmoozing means making out in German. And I didn't know that at the time. And so I was like just trying to I kept saying how I'm just trying to schmooze my way in or whatever. And they're like, what are you talking about? They didn't know the Yiddish colloquial that Americans are more. They're like the formal German people. And so, but I like schmoozing. Love schmoozing. This is so fun.
I can tell you like schmoozing. I mean, between the podcast, just your energy when we had our intro phone call, I mean, off the freaking charts. And you're already, I mean, that little tidbit of schmoozing meaning kissing in German, that's amazing.
Schmoozing. Yeah, and we had our pre-schmoozing call. Let's though jump in. Yeah, the Toyota Mirai stuff is probably the most interesting thing about me right now. It's a very distinguishing, very unique case, and I'm learning so much. It's actually crazy to live the cliche of when they say, oh, it's the practice of law and you're always practicing. That sounds like so nauseating, but this is a whole new world that I'm jumping into. Just to set it up, in the early 90s, there was a woman with McDonald's that she had a coffee that she put between her legs that she went through a drive-through. And the coffee ends up spilling and burning her. And she ended up winning $2.7 million 2 years later in a jury verdict. She needed skin graft surgery in order to get herself better. And she needed months and months in the hospital. Her daughter had to take off work in order to watch her. And she made a handwritten note to McDonald's like, hey, can you help me pay for my medical bills? They purposely kept the coffee at 190 degrees because it was cheaper than making new pots of coffee constantly. And at the time, the headlines and all of the papers were making so much fun of her. And I revisited that energy with this case because even for me as a human, as a non-lawyer human, suing someone, I think just naturally when we hear about other people's problems, we're not that interested in being confrontational and being on the attack about it. I mean, there is an innate feeling that humans have about injustice and we want to see real justice. But when it seems like it's not so clear cut, there's something about it that even going against McDonald's or going against Toyota, there's something about us that's like, oh, you're going to sue them or you're going to start a war. Why? Don't do that. And that was something that I had to overcome with this case. This car runs just on hydrogen, not gas, not electric. And there isn't enough hydrogen to go around. There's many other issues with the car, but the first woman that called me, she kept telling me how the heat seater wouldn't turn off. And the car is just cooking my ass. It's cooking my ass. She keeps yelling that. And she's talking about hydrogen and there isn't enough fuel. And then this seat is just cooking her up. And I'm like, this lady is crazy. Like, I'm not going to deal with this case. But then I start looking into it more and more, and I realized that Toyota was controlling the entire hydrogen supply, and they specifically targeted California because they know we have green hearts, liberal hearts, and they sold 20,000 of these cars here. And the cars don't work. They're a total pain in the neck for people. And so I filed a class action lawsuit, and then I agreed to do private arbitrations, which are just now starting. And I'm loving these private arbitrations because court is more fun. It's more public. You get to do more depositions, more discovery, drive them more nuts. But these are faster. It's much more like Heimish, much more informal. I'm just talking to some retired judge, some lawyer at the sunset years of his career. And I know how to be deferential. Like, I went to yeshiva. I had a Rosh Yeshiva. I would talk to him in the third person and, really kiss his butt in the particular way that he wanted his butt kissed, or whatever yeshiva it was. Like, I can do that with an arbitrator. I call him or her arbitrator, in the third person. And like, I enjoy it. I enjoy that role of like, I'm mischievous, but I'm still showing you deference. And it's very interesting to see Toyota just deny and delay. And I'm very grateful for this case, for this opportunity. It's kind of like my whole life I was training for this one moment. And so it's like, I used to represent Audi and Volkswagen, in their lemon law claims. And I used to feel guilty about it because my grandparents survived the Holocaust, and like Volkswagen was like the car of the Nazis. And I was like, how am I reconciling this? But like, I was making a salary, and that was like more important to my grandparents than vengeance, probably. But now I get to use what I learned representing them against this other car company. So all full circle, and Slumdog Millionaire, and hopefully that name tag will mean something to me too.
Wow. You're like meant for podcasts, man. Like, the way that you talk about yourself is just like unbelievable. I like that people talk about themselves, kind of in such a casual way. And I think you were perfectly meant for this podcast. I can tell, like, oh yeah, you're a lawyer, whatever, very formal profession, whatever. But you know how to schmooze, man. Like, you were talking about how you're schmoozing up the arbitrator and your Rosh Yeshiva and all that stuff. I want to get into, by the way, speaking of yeshiva, I want to get into kind of like your Jewish journey and kind of set the tone for all of our listeners. Why don't you talk a little bit about like what your Jewish identity means to you on like a spectrum? And I hate the spectrum. My listeners know this. I hate the whole Orthodox, Reform, conservative, blah, 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 like all that bullshit. Like, I'm a big, if you're Jewish, you're a Jewish guy. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, why don't you talk a little bit about your Jewish identity and how you identify as a Jew, some important things to you?
Something I've been thinking about now is touch. So I've been very good at pushing myself to embarrass myself and say things that are just like brash, and I don't care if I make a bad impression. Like, I'm going to ask that question that everyone else is wondering, but no one else has the guts to say. My whole 20s was like devotion to this tactic of like really pushing myself. And now I'm in my like early 30s, and I'm kind of like, I'm tapering off of that. Now I can kind of pick my spots of when I want to like go for the jugular or not. And I think touch, physical touch, is something that got robbed from me. It would be one of the few things I would say I have a problem with in Orthodox Judaism. It's like, it's just so taboo. There's literally a rule, shomer negia, and for good reason. Like, we live in a culture, we live in a society, we live with people, you can't rape people. That's not good. And anytime you touch someone and they don't want to be touched, it's a form of rape. So it's definitely, and how do you toe that line? And female sexuality is just such a driver of the universe. And like, so there's just blanket rules, and that's kind of a big fix in Orthodox Judaism in general. They make these like big blueprints for how to live life. And usually it works. I mean, I'd give it a B+. Like, everything that they're doing is just so much richness and beauty. But I think that touch definitely got robbed from me. And very recently now, I'm trying to just like that extra hug, the extra high five, the extra just like tap on the shoulder, whatever it is, because that's something that was robbed. Because it just is so taboo, and you're just so not allowed to touch people, and there's so much guilt about touching yourself. that touch is just this like this thing that like, oh, you can't. So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and trying to push myself to embarrass myself, like, because if you touch someone and they don't want to be touched, like, what's the real worst thing that can happen? If you don't have bad intentions about it, then you can just look them in the eye and be like, oh, I won't do that again. And if they have some recurring past trauma, you might never recover from that situation, and it could be super embarrassing. But that's a really low percentage, and the higher percentage choice in order to foster more connection, in order to enjoy life more, would probably be to like touch someone on the forum when they make a joke and be like, wow, that's really, it's such a big need for people. So, but my journey of orthodoxy, or it starts with orthodoxy. I was raised extremely religious, and within the context of my mother's father, like, wears the Sputnik. Well, now he's since passed, but his son that lives in London still does. And my other grandparents, as I mentioned, they survived the Holocaust. It's a very serious upbringing. Like, despite the fact that I was born like 10 minutes from every major motion picture studio, like, there's none of that in my life. I mean, absolutely none of that. We did not have a TV growing up. I got to watch Laker games at my grandmother's house, but that was really it. And then like some like iconic movies like made it into my diet, but very, very rare. And movies and TV really were a snorkel to the outside world for me. It was a really big deal for me to get whatever I could, Archie comics, or I don't know, whatever I could get my hands on at the time. And then like, I think out of just in resistance to all of the rules, I just started asking a lot of questions like, oh, if we die and there's this like paradise going on, then like, dude, that's sick. Like, who cares if we die? Like, what are we doing here? Like, we're just waiting to get there. You start asking questions that like, when you take things literal into their logical extreme, which is not the point of it. Like, oh, the serpent and convinced Adam and Eve to eat, or maybe it was have sex, I don't know. But let's say the literal was to eat, and then his punishment is he has to slither. Well, he was able to talk and reason. Like, why don't we talk about that part? And like slavery, like Abraham Lincoln was like, yo, we're not doing slaves, but God is cool with slavery. Oh, it was a document for the time. You just cannot take these things literally, and you don't need to. And there's just so much beauty in it. So then over time, I kind of just kept asking questions, kept going through the motions. I really went through yeshiva all my life. I even did like a year in Israel. I did post-Israel while I got my degree. I did more yeshiva. And by the time law school came around, I just was like, I had gone completely the other way, and I wasn't practicing at all any of my Judaism, and just eating oysters and going to Vienna and having a good time. And then by now I'm probably for like my non-Jewish friends, they probably think of me as like a rabbi, it's like how much I still love it and what I'm doing. And, so I think I've landed on a happy medium.
I like that. I think it's kind of a common occurrence amongst the, we can call it the Haredi Orthodox community, that you have, you put your kids through yeshiva for 18, 20 years, then they go the extreme way because, what you can't have is so much more attractive to a young kid than what you do have. So it's very interesting to hear how you kind of went from the extreme to now, you do things that aren't, you do things like, for example, you're mentioning eating oysters, right, that aren't kosher. But at the end of the day, you still feel like a proud Jew, which is what the most important thing is at the end of the day. And kind of the point of this podcast is I can bring on, a Chabad rabbi, somebody that's super Orthodox. I could bring on somebody that's maybe had a bar mitzvah or not even had a bar mitzvah. And at the end of the day, they're Jewish. And I think you kind of add to that story and exemplify, you don't need to fall into this basket of cultural norms where, you're basically saying, I am going to dress a certain way. I'm going to act a certain way. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to be a proud Jew. I personally think, and you can disagree with me on this, I personally think that Judaism has its pickings and choosings, right? There are some things for me that I'm more connected with than others. For example, putting on tefillin, right? Very connected with that. I love putting on tefillin. It is something that like I try and do as much as I can because it's my physical way of connecting with God. Now, if you ask me to keep Shabbat and God forbid miss college football one day, that's a different story. So it's really, there's a lot of picking and choosings that you really got to do.
To dovetail though on saying being a proud Jew, even as far, there's so much that you said that's definitely worth delving into. The baskets is so interesting to me too. Like, there's such an adherence to dressing a certain way and living up a certain way, and it's because of the pressure of the community. And it could be because I'm out of it a little more. It could be because this next generation is a little more forgiving, but I really don't think in general humans care what you're doing. And if you're treating people well, I see it in my own life. Like, I'm clearly driving to my friend's meal on Shabbat, and it doesn't come up in the conversation. Like, I bring a toy for their kid, and we reconnect on old things. We even talk about the Parsha this past week. I don't know when we're going to release this episode. I'm saying we, like I'm going to have anything to do with all the publishing work that you're going to go through to put this out. But this past week was a very dear one to me. It was about judges and law and orchestrating the whole jurisprudence scheme that is very close to our judicial system today. With like Moses, you're dealing with too many small claims. You need like a judge layer under you, and then another judge layer, and like there's like an appeals court system and process that they really legislated thousands of years ago. Like, what were they arguing about with their sand tents and like, my sheep, your sheep? Like, I don't know what they were fighting about so much that they had such a sophisticated legal system already back then. There's so much richness, and people just really don't care. It's just so much more about like how you're treating people. And I dated this one girl that her father was Jewish, but she wasn't Jewish. And I dated her at a time that she identified with Jewishness so much more than me. It was like annoying. And the whole time I couldn't get past in my own head, I'm like, you're not even a Jew. I would only say it to me because that was still close to that fidelity to those laws. But she's just as Jewish as the next person. Like, the more I go out, the more I've lived, the more grateful I become, the more solidarity I feel with the Jewish people. And it's just such a great club to be part of. It's unspeakable.
It is. There's something special about being Jewish. And I wake up every day thanking God that I'm Jewish and not any other religion. While we do have, I would say, arguably the most adversity out of all religions to ever exist in the entire world, I think it's only made us a stronger people. And being able to do things like this is just, I don't see it in any other religion. The connection that Jewish people have, and I've said this time and time again on this podcast, and I think my podcast is a testament to the connection that Jewish people have, is absolutely unbelievable. The fact that I'm able to reach out to you, Jason, and say, hey, Jason, come on my podcast and schmooze about your personal brand and about your Jewish pride is unbelievable. You don't see that in any other religion. So
I don't know. I would push back on that. I think that there's definitely other religions that have podcasts, and there's definitely other religions that you can cold outreach to and you'll get really good response. The legal community is like nothing to do with Jewishness. I can call any lawyer and they're willing to do a podcast or coffee with me. I'm going to get kicked off your own show for disagreeing with.
No. Honestly, I like it when my guests push back on me. So go ahead.
No, I have to push back because I mean, your podcast is obviously going to bring Mashiach. I mean, obviously your podcast is the answer to all of Jewish adversity. But I think that there's so much. What you're saying is true. It captures really, though, the same thing. It's like when I lived in Vienna, I just knew that I could go to synagogue and I'd get community, and I don't know these people. So it's the same thing. Again, I'd agree with you.
Totally. No, and I can already see the lawyer coming out of you. So I want to get right into your legal career. I think every Jewish person listening to this knows you have three options given to you by your Jewish parents where you're going to be in life. You're either going to be a doctor, you're either going to be a lawyer, or you're going to be a successful businessman. So why did you choose number two, to be a lawyer? Talk me through your decision to go to law school, and not just any law school, but UCLA Law School, one of the top law schools in the world.
Go Bruins. I did not make the decision. That decision was made for me. It was written in the stars. It's a lot about what you said. Every single one of my first cousins, so this is a lot of privilege. Every single one of my first cousins is either a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, or a rabbi. The doctor thing, so I really didn't have much of an education other than learning Talmud. I really didn't, you really just don't, it's not emphasized, it's not interesting. There's not a lot of resources dedicated to it. But I was always good with words, and my dad was always pushing me, you have to get some kind of career going. And so it kind of just, it made the most sense. Like always, like I knew when I was like 16 years old, I'm going to be a lawyer. Like it wasn't like this decision that I made that, oh, I was going to go to business school or whatever. And then when I studied for the LSAT, I went to one of the best, not one of the best LSAT instructor. He's in Brooklyn, New York. He teaches mostly Orthodox kids, very bright class, very motivating. And it was like really humbling to be in a group of kids that like majority of them are Harvard grads. So like UCLA is like, I did okay, but I got a full ride to UCLA. I say that to brag, and I say that to explain that it was very doable. I got a great grade on my LSAT and the yeshiva bachelor's degree, which I did do some school credits for, had a really good GPA. So I had that made for me, but I applied to like all of the top 20, 30 schools. Every single one I paid $100 and applied to each one with like a personal statement for each one. And then I negotiated the schools against each other. And that was really valuable. Someone taught me that move. That wasn't me. I didn't come up with that. But like I flew into Chicago to tour those schools. I got into those schools, and it was just to leverage other schools. I had no intention of going to Chicago. Man, was it cold. It was brutal. It was March and it was biting. The wind was biting cold. I don't understand how humans choose to go there. And then, I went to UCLA. It was such a good time. It was such an amazing place.
It's so funny you're complaining about the cold, Jason, because I'm from Minnesota, and Chicago's cold is I wouldn't say it's Minnesota's cold. I guess the Chicagoans have something to say about that, but
we're in Minnesota. We're in Minnesota.
Minneapolis.
My friend moved there, and he was describing that there's certain malls that have just like they're just like tunnels, and because you can't even go outside, you'll die.
Yep. No, you won't die, but they're called the Skyways, and you can take them from, in downtown Minneapolis, you can take it from one building to the next. Really nice. I mean, when you're down there and it's cold and you don't want to be outside, pretty nice. But yeah, no, Minnesota winters are no freaking joke. And, it's, I don't know, I've kind of lived there my entire life, so I'm used to it at this point, but it's definitely, I can understand why people are like, look at me with three eyes and be like, what are you doing here? You're literally an alien from a different universe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm from LA, man. I don't even know if I could hack New York.
I mean, New York's not as bad, but I guess going back to your legal career. So getting to UCLA, get a full ride, which is freaking impressive. You're killing it. And I know you said it wasn't, quote unquote, wasn't that hard, but you talk about the negotiation part of it. Like that's just like genius. Like you're going to law school and you're negotiating with law schools. Like who does that? Like that's awesome. Like I love that.
I push them hard. Yeah. And I've actually helped people. Some people just don't know about that move. And I think maybe because I was so gung-ho of this was going to be my path, that I was always talking to people along the way and just learning like, oh, what did that guy say? That guy said something interesting or that. And I don't remember when I was in law school, there were certain moves that I learned to like crush the exams that I remember who told me. But this move, I don't remember who, but I've since told other people and they've gotten a lot of scholarship. I got such a good scholarship. They don't even have that scholarship anymore. The school was paying me to attend the school. They gave me like $5,000 a year for books because books are that expensive. So I got really lucky.
That's unbelievable. Well, I don't think you got lucky. I mean, listen, like you turned this into a very good legal career, which is the predominant reason why you're on the podcast today. Is I've seen your work, just scanning your LinkedIn, your website, your podcast, everything. I think you've really built a good legal career for yourself. So whether it's been, your experience working in real estate law or employment law or corporate law, whatever it is, like I've seen that you've had, and at least your law firm now, Ingber Law Group, you guys offer a lot of these experiences. But I promised my listeners today that you wouldn't be boring. So I want to go into an area of legal practice that maybe you don't talk about so much, but see it on your LinkedIn. So get ready for this question. I want you to talk about your work in the entertainment law space. How has that been? Have you worked with anybody cool? Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what that's been like?
So the entertainment law space, when I chose UCLA Law because there was an entertainment law program, and the director there, I met him at a luncheon, and he's like, oh, you got to come here. And he said all the names and everything. That I was like, oh, it's so cool. And then you realize that the entertainment law is the least exciting law in the world possible, because you're just touching pieces of paper that famous people are mentioned in. And at the tippy top of entertainment law, it is super exciting. I'm friends with someone. I actually need to call him. He offered to meet with me for coffee. I haven't met with him in a while. He is very high up in Warner Brothers. Incredible human being. Totally doesn't care about the glitz and the glam and the fashion. And same with this other guy, John Cornell, who runs a talent agency that I'm really good friends with. Like, you're talking about Amanda Seyfried's coming to his office and he doesn't know who that is. He has to like IMDb her quickly so he doesn't seem like stupid. And like those are typically the type of people you find at the top. It's probably split. Some people just live it, breathe it, eat it. But there's other people it's like it's just a job for them. And at the bottom of that totem pole is like the most boring work you can imagine. Like you're just doing contract work. It's just contracts and you're just moving around I's and T's. And I got to touch it though a little bit more. I did a few years of it. We had this one. I worked at this. This is fun. I worked on Highland or La Brea. I don't remember now which boulevard is the Jim Henson studio. Jim Henson created Kermit the Frog and the Muppets, and he's just a legend. And so I worked at this law firm that was on the lot over there. I have tons of zany stories out of that experience. One of them was that I did the contract work for The Bachelor. Not The Bachelor, it was a spinoff. Okay, so we're working, and this is like the whole summer. I'm like working on this thing for them, and it's finally all buttoned up. And then the guy gets into a massive DUI, starts saying racist things to the cops, and like the whole show goes to shit. And then I had one in that place also. This guy was designing a children's game, and it was so beautiful and interesting. It was like Dungeons and Dragons, but on a children's level. But it took him like a month to trust me enough to tell me the idea. What I was drafting was the contracts for him to go shop it around and for his agent to go shop it around. But he didn't want to put in the contract what the idea was. I was like, well, then we can't really protect the idea with that. He wouldn't trust me. He kept hanging up the phone. It was like this really quirky mad scientist guy. I did Mike Tyson, had a documentary, limited series. It was supposed to be on AMC. I have no idea. I never followed the production. I have no idea if it actually came to fruition or not. It was the same producer as Crazy Rich Asians. So it was this crazy rich Asian, like young guy. And he decided to produce this show. It was Mike Tyson going to like Costa Rica, somewhere off the mainland of the US to do intense drugs with a shaman. And like it was going to be like his like realizations about it. Because if you've seen Mike Tyson today, he's always crying in interviews. Like he's a totally different person. And so the partner at the firm was like, okay, you need to draft this thing that if Mike Tyson goes like nuts on the drugs and starts hitting people, and that this crazy rich Asian guy in our production company won't get sued. And like within like 5 minutes of research, I'm like, that's not enforceable. Like you're gonna go to a judge in the United States and be like, look, we did this like drug orgy situation in Costa Rica, and I'm like looking up like waivers like skydiving and like random stuff, and none of it was applicable. But the partner was like, draft it, I don't care. And so we drafted it, and someone signed it, and someone thinks that's enough. And I was silently hoping that Mike Tyson would sock someone in the face, and there would be like some kind of issue about it. But I did like some TikTok deals a lot, especially when TikTok was first coming up. I did a lot of like the D'Amelio sisters, their deals, and it was just fascinating how much stupid money these people were getting paid to do these things. Like one of them was making like $100K every 90 days to just post. And like the terms were hilarious. It was like you have to post like a 12-second video, and like you can only put a product placement in 1 out of 3. Like it was really like they were business women. Like they understood what they were negotiating. It wasn't just like willy-nilly, but there was so much money on the table. Like Bella Porch, I remember she was making so much money just renewing these just to post. It wasn't like they could on top of that do product placements. It was TikTok paying them to stay on the platform, which is fascinating. So I definitely did a little bit of entertainment law over the years, but it confused my passions. Like my passion of this, talking with you and sort of creating an entertainment product through what we're doing right now, is completely divorced from when you're going to get your Spotify deal, and then someone's going to do that deal in a air conditioning office, like clanking out the document. Like that has nothing to do with what we're actually doing, which is exciting. And so I quickly realized that. And I liked being a lawyer. If I'm going to be a lawyer, I want to be in court. I want to be fighting. I want to be like doing David versus Goliath kind of stuff. Like that has nothing to do with entertainment law. So I've since forged my own path.
That's hearing those stories. That's crazy. I mean, the D'Amelios, like Mike Tyson, like that's a pretty. I would not expect those two people to be mentioned in the same conversation, but here we are talking to an LA lawyer, and shit that goes on in LA, I don't even understand it. Like I got some family in LA. I haven't been back there in 8 years. All I've heard is that it's just gotten crazier and crazier by the day. So I'm gonna stay away from there. But
no, you should come visit. We should get a beer when you're next here. Seriously, I'll take you out. There's some great restaurants, kosher, not kosher, whatever you want. There's a lot of fun stuff. It's the most beautiful place. I believe that when Moshe Rabbeinu did his deal with Hashem for Israel, it's because he didn't know about LA. Okay. California is so gorgeous. There's mountains, there's beaches, the people, they're so swollen with hope and creativity. Like the quirkiest people from every part of the world come here every year trying to make something of themselves. It's such a beautiful place. You definitely need to come through. The media blows it up. You should come through. It's a beautiful place.
Okay, so Jason, you like driving on the 405 with 4-hour traffic, or does that make it?
Don't go during rush hour. Get up early. Go finish when it's at 6 p.m. Okay.
I just remember like when I would take trips there with my family. Like it's probably the only highway outside of Minnesota and Maryland that I actually remember, because it was so goddamn awful sitting in traffic on the 405, stop, start, this, that, like horrible. I would never want to drive a car in LA. Like that's probably like up there with my worst fears of like getting killed by 20 spiders, and that like driving a car on the 405, like I can't imagine how people do it every single day. And people are going from LA to San Diego to, wherever. Like it's nuts. Like,
You really hit the nail on the head. That's definitely something that I think is true about LA that people say. The traffic is horrendous. Everything's a half an hour away. LA is a half an hour away from LA. Like everything is. And you really have to time it all out with the traffic. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love this city so much. It's so weird and so spread out and so impractical and so beautiful. It's a mosaic of all these different cities. I mean, LA County has more population other than New York, Texas, and Illinois. LA County is more populated than the other states. So like, yeah, there's going to be traffic, and yeah, because it's the greatest place to live. So a lot of people live here.
I like that you're vouching hard for LA, because most of my guests are, New York East Coast Jews that love the East Coast, and that's all they talk about. And here it's so different out here. I mean, like the time that you can travel to San Diego, for example, is the exact time that I can get to New York on an Amtrak. So it's kind of nuts that you're able to do that. Wait, sorry to interrupt you. My landlord just texted me. I'm going to text him back that I'm doing a call right now so he doesn't hit notify anyway, and then we will resume our interview. Is that okay?
Do whatever you got to do.
Okay. I'm so sorry
You're
about that.
great. Don't worry about it.
Hold on. In the middle of a interview of a call, will call once I'm done. See, the good thing about these podcasts is that I can cut out whatever the hell I want, and like it doesn't matter.
You're the publisher, but
I
you should
am.
leave it. You should leave it all in. I'll tell you why. I've been doing podcasting 3 years, and I used to obsessively edit. And I think that the random human stuff that happens is just as intriguing. Like if someone's 38 minutes into listening to us, they want to know that you're battling through these landlord notifications to try and produce media for them. Like that's funny and weird and interesting. And as opposed to you taking 42 minutes of your time cutting it and splicing it and blending it and making it sound like, I don't know, does that person really care? I think everyone will forgive you for it. And it's endearing too. That's just random tidbit, but
no, I like that. And I mean, you're a podcast genius yourself. You have your own podcast, and then you're starting a new podcast, the 5-minute podcast. So talk about your podcasting journey and kind of how you went from starting a podcast, why you started a podcast, and now you're doing something called the 5-minute podcast.
Sure. Yeah. My friend Yaakov Langer he has the most powerful Jewish, no offense to Schmoozing with Jewsin, sure that's just as big, but he's got 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He does Living L'Chaim. We went to yeshiva together. We were in Israel. My brief stint in Israel was with him. He was my roommate. So he kind of started podcasting a little bit before me, and then I saw how successful he got and how quickly, and I was like, oh, I could do that. And it was during COVID, and my social battery is charged by socializing. Like I am an extroverted extrovert, and COVID was detrimental to me. I was like, oh my gosh. So I started the podcast during COVID because it gave me the opportunity I would do it anyways. Like I told you, the Warner Brothers executive, I need to call him to go for coffee. Like I was doing that before podcasting was even a thing. Like I was 16 years old. I was just taking people out to coffee. Let me learn from you. Let me hear what you have to say and teach me something interesting. Then I just started recording it. And there's a ton of logistical stuff that goes into a podcast. Everyone's like, everyone has a podcast. Really? I'd love to meet those people. Not everyone actually has a podcast. A lot of people start podcasts, but they usually don't continue them because there's just so much work that goes into it. That's just the least glamorous, so intense. And you fight through the landlord texting you during a podcast. See, now you have to keep it in because I'm making reference to it. So, but you don't have to. I don't know how you'll edit it all out, but you'll figure it out. But that is nothing. Like you go through different softwares and hardwares that don't work, and things get stolen and lost, and it doesn't upload, and the publishing and the YouTube striking, and like it just never ends. It's a whole job within a job. I love it so much. I can't seem to stop. That's really why I'm keep doing it. I have no idea. It's costing me a fortune of money. It's just now this new venture that I started I'm starting to bring in money. But my accountant actually told me, it's like last year or 2 years ago, I don't remember. She was like, if you don't bring money in anywhere, you can't claim write-offs like indefinitely for some just loser hobby. And I was like, oh, those are harsh words, but she's right. So I had to start bringing in some money. This new venture really is bringing in some money because it's much more targeted. I was podcasting, just enjoying talking to interesting people. I talked to porn stars, CEOs, rabbis. Like I remember the first few times I was pulling it off, where I'd literally have like a sex worker, and then the next day, like a Hasidish rabbi. Like you can look at the timestamps on when I'm publishing these things, like it's real. And I remember the first time I was like so nervous pulling it off. But then like you realize again, like people don't care. Like it's all in our own heads. Like the rabbi was willing to sit down with me because he likes me, he knows me, he trusts me, and that's it. Okay, maybe there was some stripper on my podcast. There's nothing to do with him. He doesn't care. And this guy has like the curly payas, and like he's literally one of the most respected rabbis in LA. And we had a phenomenal conversation. I had a phenomenal conversation with him. The stripper was actually super disturbing. I'm still friends with her, but man, you could tell something's just broken with that woman inside. It's interesting. But now I'm trying to focus the podcasting a little bit more centered on legal stuff because I'm able to market it better and get marketing dollars for it. And I'm going to start a separate podcast on comedy, improv comedy during the podcast. I've already recorded 5 episodes. I'm not going to launch till I have like 15 in the can, because it's really, I can only do it when I have the time. And then when I launch, I want to be consistent with it. So I'm trying to be methodical with that. But I think that covers most of my podcasting journey. You told me before we started recording I shouldn't ask questions about you. I'm like being very cognizant of that, but I have a lot of questions for you too. Like, I think that what you're doing is so cool, and the work that you're doing in the world is interesting, and how you squeeze it into your days. I mean, I guess you have some kind of remote job, but it's a beautiful thing. There isn't enough authentic media, and that is really the difference maker in the world now, in how it's going to totally transform. Like, that's why you only see tentpole movie productions, because the guy with the iPhone is now competing with Warner Brothers, and he can make just as good entertainment. So they have to go all out, make, $500 million movies, because that's the only way they can beat you, right? Like, you're competing with Ben Shapiro, like you're competing with all these people because you have your audience, and the people that are tuning into your stuff and will continue to, and will look back on your work and stuff like that, like, they're unique to you. That guy may never even tap your audience, and you're just like creating and forming this product, and it's a beautiful thing.
Jason, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, man, because to say that I'm in the same competition level as Ben Shapiro, I think that's a major stretch. However, I see what you're saying. Yes, like I am competing for those Jewish listeners, but yes, you're absolutely right. Authenticity in media has gone out the window. I mean, every big media agency wants to produce headlines. I'm about authenticity, and that's part of the reason why I chose to focus on personal branding, which is a topic that many people just simply don't understand what a personal brand is. And I think it can mean something different to absolutely everybody, whether that's a story.
What does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me? So in very simple terms, and I'm going to ask you the same question, by the way, in very simple terms, your personal brand is how you promote yourself. Okay. That could mean 5 million different things. That could mean how you promote yourself in a interview, right? You conduct yourself in a way that makes you suitable for a job, okay? Now, let's say you want to promote yourself to, for example, in your case, you want to promote yourself to different law schools so you can negotiate your law school, scholarship, right? That's a form of promoting yourself. So really, there's hidden forms of promotion that people don't realize. Everything you do in life has some sort of element of negotiation, convincing, and sales. I'm a firm believer in that. People can argue with me that there are some instances where negotiation, sales, and convincing is not relevant, but I think absolutely every decision you make and every important decision you make has some sort of element of that. So with that being said, Jason, what does your personal brand mean to you?
Okay, everything you said resonated, and everything you said is true. So to not just piggyback on what you said, there's this amazing book called Steal Like an Artist. It's a very small book. It's very user-friendly. It's filled with like fun pictures. And in that book, there's a few principles in that. And one of them is to work publicly. And that's something that really is important to me. Everything I do, I try and do it very publicly. If I'm on an email chain and I want to say one thing to one person, I don't reply to that one person. I reply all. If have a case, I post about it on LinkedIn. I invite people to come go watch me in a hearing. Everything I do, I try and do it as publicly as possible, because you can do so much work, and it might only a tiny bit of it will ever hit someone else's radar. You can be out there doing so much. It's like, I live in LA and you see it all the time. Like, I just went to a play. I'm in Groundlings. I do seasonally I'll do like improv classes. It's very helpful for court. And so my teacher had a play that he was putting on a few blocks away one night, and I go to see it, and I sit next to this actor who, like, man, I've seen him in hundreds of episodes of television. Community. His name is Jim Rash. I don't know if you ever watched Community. Probably not. It's a niche show. And you see, there you go, right? This guy who actually had a big impact on my life. Really. I mean, he made me laugh many nights alone. Like, I watched it at a dark time. I was like watching it in like 2017. I was like, where it's just graduating law school. Like, he brought so much joy to my life. And in this moment of meeting him, I recognized him, and I was able to articulate one or two films that he had written and been in. And we talked about that. But the whole show, I forgot the entire show. I couldn't remember a single thing from his character. And he's in like 100 episodes, and like he's in every episode. And he wrote most of the show, or a lot of the show. And like you just see so much of that in Los Angeles, and like it didn't matter. And I'll probably get the chance to see him again because I'm starting to like grow in those circles too, God willing. But you see that all the time where like these people, and like sometimes they get offended, and like you see someone, you're not giving them the respect because they've been in these like huge pieces of art that are circulated around the world. And like just such a small sliver of what someone might do might hit their radar. Like I'll talk to my dad about someone and he doesn't even know who the hell I'm talking. I mean, I've just talked about this guy with you who's like, look how substantial his career is. I've spent a minute of your time talking about him. You'll never even know who he is. And like, so there's so much. And so that's like a big reason to work publicly. It's like, because you don't know what's going to hit. And if you're doing everything authentically and openly and transparently, then you have more of a chance for more of it to get seen. And your personal brand, borrowing from that book, lastly, I'll say, is just whatever you're doing, that's your personal brand. That's it, and you want it. I have friends that are much more into branding, and they're bothering me to be more focused, and I probably should be, and I could be more marketable, but I don't know, man. You're right. You're just talking about everything's a sell point in negotiation. It's like there's this other book, I think it's called Elephant in the Brain, and it's about how everything's about just sex. Everything's about procreation. Everything, every aspect of what you're doing is to try and show people you're genetically good and superior and you're worthwhile. And I think that reduces the human experience a little bit too much, and it's not really the only thing that's going on. There's love, there's connection, there's spirituality, there's things that transcend just transactional. I'm always selling, and personal brand has to have that same thing where it's like, yeah, a lot of it is me selling, and it's I'm selling right now even by not selling, but a lot of it is also just not that. You're just trying to have connection and go about your life, and overly reducing it is like, it's just not real.
I think everything you said is so true and relevant. And I think a lot of people, going back to what you were saying earlier, a lot of people just simply don't care about what you post, what you do, right? So why not be public about it, right? Like, what are you hiding about yourself that you don't want people to see, right? If you want to be true to yourself and be authentic, you got to showcase like who you are truly inside. You got to do that over and over and over again. And even if it's not for the views, right? Like, yeah, of course, I'd love if 1 million people viewed this podcast, like, of course. But at the end of the day, the views at some point are out of my control. But what I do know what's in my control is how much content I post, how many times I make a highlight of this episode, how much effort I put into promoting this podcast, right? Like, I know that the more I do that, the more opportunities I get. So I think what you said is extremely, extremely valuable. And if there's anything from this episode that my listeners should take away, is that be public. Don't be afraid of showcasing yourself to other people. Because literally Jason on here was talking about how he had a sex worker and a rabbi on his podcast, okay? That is something that nobody would admit to, except for Jason. You know why? Because he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And he knows that you don't care either, okay? So be more public about yourself. If there's any takeaway from this episode, be more public about yourself. So with that being said, Jason, this has been just an unbelievable conversation. I think the authenticity, I hope, can seep through everybody's headphones, wherever you're listening. Before we end this episode, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out to you or follow your content?
Oh, it's a generous question. My Hebrew moniker is Yitzi, but my legal name is Jason Ingber. And if you search Jason M. Ingber in Instagram, you'll find me. If you Google Jason Ingber, I think at this point you'll see either my Twitter handle or my Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. Someone runs my TikTok. I can't do it. It's too addicting. I have to have it off my phone. Yeah. Find me on this episode. Find me with David. Find me with David on this episode. That's the first place people should find me. Is this really? You gave me a chance to talk, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that you appreciate it. That's exactly the feeling I want each of my guests to have. So Jason, we really want to thank you for coming on the show. Until next time, keep schmoozing.